not only for joining us today, but also for everything you do for our Federation of the Jewish People. Amir, welcome. It is wonderful to finally meet you on Zoom. I've heard a tremendous amount about you and your incredible volunteerism. Every time that I've been in Israel since October 7th, and I've been 4 times, I've had the good fortune of meeting with and talking to volunteers from United Hatzalah, and you are a legend. So first thing I want to ask you and ask you to talk about is how were you drawn to this organization that is comprised of volunteers, the majority of them being Jewish? What drew you to this group? And just tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a volunteer with Hatzalah.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I have to thank everyone for participating and joining us and be part of what I believe our great work and what I always say, to be part of this big and great family, because I think that most of us as volunteers with the United Hatzalah, we see it as a family more than just like, an organization. It's this atmosphere that we feel that all are acceptable and we are all the same. And especially when it comes to these tough days and times, especially after October 7th and and how it was like that was like a big effect of the relationship between the different people that live in Israel from the different backgrounds. To go back in time, I joined United Hatzalah in 2018, and to be honest, I was with a friend that he's from East Jerusalem as well, and he knows one of the volunteers in United Hatzalah. During that time, when I talk about 2018 in East Jerusalem, there were 40 volunteers, 40 Arab volunteers from East Jerusalem. Nowadays, I'm talking about 150. And so I'm one of 150 Arab volunteers in East Jerusalem, and one of 750 Arab volunteers in Israel, not only in East Jerusalem. So we are now 10 to 15% of, if we talk about the percentage of the Arabs in United Hatzalah. So this is how like the journey started in the year 2018. Me personally, I see myself as a human being, and I see all the people the same. And for sure, when I heard about United Hatzalah for the first time, it was like, okay, I wanted to help people and save people's lives. And that was like a Jewish Israeli organization. And then when we started the course, and then like I started understanding what are the values that United Hatzalah have, that there is no difference between any people, like depending on their background or religion or faith or whatever. It's an organization that has one aim, one main goal: saving people's lives. And as volunteers, which is very important, that we are volunteers and not workers. So you choose to save life, and you're not waiting for anything in return. And as you mentioned before, I'm a tour guide as well. And as a tour guide, I am almost, traveling all over the country. And so when I talk about all over the country, so for sure, when we talk about Israel, in some areas you will see, or you'll find that the majority of the people that are living in this area are like Muslims. And then in a different area, you'll find like more Jewish people, more Christian people, more Druze, depending on the towns and villages. And I travel all over the country. And this was very important for me in this case, that when I'm somewhere, which is probably will be far in a national park here and there, and here I'm talking about my personal experience and with a group as a tour guide, which is like when I start from the first day as a tour guide, when I introduce myself to their group, and then in the end I add this, which is an extra thing, that I'm a medic as well, and I have my own first aid kit and my own defibrillator as well. This I always feel that like this give them this feeling of like they feel more safe, that yes, if like anything, God forbid, if something will happen, so there is someone who's our tour guide as well, that can help. And as I said, especially when you are visiting somewhere here and there in the national parks that are far from the center of the cities or the towns. And I can talk about, I don't want to say tens of cases as a tour guide, but I can talk about maybe 5 to 6 cases where there were really like need for a help or a treatment for someone that we were really far, and I used my first aid kit for that. Like, thanks God, until now I didn't need to use my defibrillator for a case like that, but you will never know. That's why I always have it. Yep.
So I think it's amazing that even though you have specific times and shifts, or every volunteer has a specific time or shift, you're really a volunteer 24/7 because you've got your kit with you, and have kit will travel. And if you need to help someone, the fact that you're off the clock really is immaterial. I think that speaks tremendously to the commitment of the Hatzalah volunteers. I
Mm-hmm.
want to hit on something that you said. I think people in the United States would be shocked that 10 to 15% of United Hatzalah um, volunteers are Arab. This is the kind of story that we want to share with our community and beyond, to tell stories that the average American, the average Jewish American isn't hearing about what's right in Israel, where things are successful, and how things are working for the common good. I want to flip that and ask you, though, what has been the response from people in your own community when they learn that you are a Hatzalah volunteer? Do you get any pushback? Do they recognize the tremendous uh, grace that you're exhibiting when you volunteer? What do they have to say?
Okay, first of all, when we think about the Arab community here, we know that until today, and yeah, we can talk, and especially after October 7th, it's still a big issue here when an Arab decides to be part of a Jewish Israeli organization, which is understandable. But when we think about United Hatzalah, we're talking about organization that our mission here and the goal is saving people's lives. And when we go in news, for sure, we have tens of thousands and even maybe more that cases that for sure when we know that the Arabs in Israel are 20% of the population. We're talking about 2 million people. When we know that in Israel live 9,600,000 people. And like in numbers, I'm good because I'm a tour guide. So when we know that we are over 20% of the population, so for sure, at least if we take it like as a percentage, at least 20% of the emergency cases that we respond to as first responders and as volunteers with United Hatzalah will be in the Arab to the Arab community and in the Arab areas and neighborhoods. So somehow, when in the Arab community they see that there is a volunteer of United Hatzalah, and for sure, sometimes he will be an Arab volunteer, but he might be a Jewish volunteer, a Christian volunteer. It doesn't matter, because if you are close to an emergency case, it is where you respond. So for sure, like in almost in every house, at least like for like there was like once, if it's not in your house, in your neighbor's house, that you saw that there is and there was like an emergency case, and a volunteer of United Hatzalah, a first responder, responded there and entered to this house. And it's like when you open the doors of your house for someone that he's still stranger for you to enter your house, but you know that he's coming to help you. When when your loved ones, when your parents, when your family, when your children, they need help, you don't care who's the person that is coming. You just like need this help. And I can tell you from hundreds of stories that I entered like houses of Jewish people or Christian people, and like for them, I am that person. Like as what we say here in United Hatzalah, like as this is an angel that is coming to save your loved ones' lives or whatever. And for sure, on the other hand, in an Arab house, they are waiting for this help, and like there is a Jewish volunteer, a Jewish medic or paramedic that is coming with his first aid kit, with defibrillator, depends on the case that they need help. And this is very important, especially in these days when we know that there is, when we talk about the level of the hatred that is in a level that never been before in our history, but now there is still this chance, or let's say this space, that is still available, where the people still understand that we need each other there.
It's definitely a sentiment and a story that needs to be shared as widely as possible. And thanks to folks like you, we can disseminate that message. Obviously, October 7th has been referenced a couple of times already, and we've only been together for 16 minutes. But I'd love if you're able to share one or two of the stories or moments from that horrific day where you and all of your Hatzalah compatriots really helped tremendous number of people. What are one or two experiences that stick with you that you would share with us?
Okay, the day of October 7th, as a tour guide, I remember that day. I was guiding a group of people, and that was in Jerusalem, and we started hearing the sirens. And like, that was on Shabbat, but I can see the videos and the photos that were like coming all the time on the different groups. So I could understand from the beginning that this time we're talking about something that is completely different than any other escalation or war that took place before. And yeah, that was the first hour. All the groups that were like in Israel, they were asked to be evacuated. So that was like an hour that I finished everything with my group. My group were on the bus on their way to be evacuated through via Jordan. So they crossed the Jordan border to Jordan, and after that back to their home country. And what I did, just like I made sure that they are going back home safe, and I left everything and I went to the dispatch center because I worked there as a volunteer at the dispatch center. Nowadays, like a year after October 7th, so for sure the tourism section is one of the most sections that were affected by October 7th because no more tourists are coming anymore. So nowadays I'm not even a volunteer and at the dispatch center. I work at the dispatch center because I needed like to find a job, and in the end I could find this in United Hatzalah as well as a dispatcher. So I left everything and I went to the dispatch center, and especially again, that's why I mentioned that was like on a Saturday, on Shabbat, because there is a need for the non-Jewish volunteers to help managing and like working at the dispatch center because it's Shabbat. And for sure, this is what I did. So like I can talk about this as about my personal experience and getting the phone calls, answering the calls, but there were other volunteers that they were closer to the South District, and they left everything and they rushed and headed south to the towns there to help the people that they needed help. And when we talk about these volunteers, I'm not only talking about Jewish Israeli volunteers, I'm talking about Muslims and Christian volunteers. And we have tens of stories of our volunteers that were there. And unfortunately, we lost one of our Arab volunteers on October 7th, that he's from Nazareth, and he's an ambulance driver, and he was murdered on October 7th.
How are, we're a year on from October 7th, and everyone, no matter how closely or indirectly they were impacted by that, is carrying around a lot of baggage. They are, this has taken a tremendous toll. How have you dealt with having to continuously deal with the effects of October 7th, as well as, stay fresh to be able to help people who need help today? How have you coped? And your friends?
Listen, I think this is very important question when you think about it. Like for example, I can understand the trauma until today after October 7th for my Jewish Israeli colleagues and friends, and still when we are talking about the war still it's still taking place. It's still an ongoing war that is taking place, and now in the north as well when we talk about the borders with Lebanon. But don't forget that when you talk about us, the non-Jewish Israeli volunteers at United Hatzalah, when you talk about Christians and Muslims, we still, for sure, almost every one of us still have connections somehow, or like relatives and family members, maybe in the West Bank, maybe in Gaza as well. You'll find some maybe like in Lebanon, because in the end, like we're Arabs. So this is not easy, and this is a big challenge for us, and a big challenge within the community, and a big challenge as a personal challenge, because what you do and what you care about is saving people's lives, and it's the same thing for all of us, the Christians and the Muslims and the Jews. So to continue what we were doing before October 7th and on October 7th and after October 7th was really a challenge. And especially I'm talking about the first days, like when the trauma was like in a high level. And somehow, here I'm talking in general about the different communities in Israel. And we know that many things has changed. But what I think that our model in United Hatzalah was very unique. And it's you can't compare it with any other models, because in a way you are talking about thousands of volunteers that they have one main goal, saving people's lives with different backgrounds. And now you're talking about this tough time and after trauma, and we could somehow like to this, let's say, a challenge or exam that we could pass successfully. And I this is what I think and I believe, because this is where I live, that most of the other let's say organizations, most of the other when we talk about communities, even when we talk about in general, no one could succeed in that as what we did.
I want to take one question that we've gotten from our audience participants because it ties in nicely with what you just said, and that is the tourism and guide business must be almost completely destroyed, or certainly
Yeah.
it's suffering. How are you doing personally? This person wants to know how you're doing.
As I said, like before that, I was a volunteer dispatcher and at the dispatch center. Nowadays, I have no choice. I need to work at the dispatch center. But like, to be honest, like as a tour guide, I was making 10 times more than the money that I make today, which is understandable, but there is no choice. You can't stay at home and just like, cry and wait for this to get back. But this is what we hope. That's why we hope that there will be like this current situation and the war will end soon, and like we will get back to our normal life. We don't want to see we don't want to see more blood. We don't want to see more people being injured and killed. And don't forget that we are lifesavers. We are like people that care about every single soul in life. So as much as we understand that today there are more people that they need help, so more people that need us, like, no, we want less people to need us. We want all the people to be in a good condition and like to be healthy, and just this is what we're looking for. We want the peace in the region, peace for everyone, and like that and everyone will accept the other, and just like get back to the, I don't want to say to the norm, only to the normal days. I hope personally that we will get to golden days even in the end, that everyone is living peacefully and accepting each other, and like just like, because no, like we will not go anywhere. And like if the people think that, for example, Jewish people will go anywhere, no, even the Jewish people will not go anywhere. It's like all of us are here and all of us have to accept this, coexist, and just live together peacefully.
I want to follow up on that a little bit, and then I'm going to bring in somebody else to join our conversation. But you do a lot of work in your spare time, volunteer time, with younger people, bringing Arabs, Christians, and Jews together, as mentioned at the very beginning. How has this Hatzalah message that we are all residents of the same planet and our health is equally important, when you try to talk to Arab and Jewish kids, how is that message resonating? Is it getting through?
Yeah, for sure. Like I have a lot of things that I usually mention and I talk about, but it's always my experience and my journey with United Hatzalah is one of the most important parts that I focus on, because I can talk about many other things, but as I said from the beginning, this journey and this experience is really unique, and I always speak about it as a model that I want all the different, like, there are different peace organizations that are trying to bring the people together, and it's always how you do it. And like here, when you talk about um, people's lives, when you talk about their health, when you talk about like helping them, like when there is someone who really need help, and he finds you, if he even thinks about you as an enemy, if he thinks about you as a competition, I don't know, but like people will be thinking about each other or seeing each other. But when you need help and you see that he is the person that comes to help you, this can make a big difference. And I'm pretty sure that me every time entering a house of a like a Jewish house for like Jewish Israeli people, and seeing me helping and doing the time when their loved ones, they are they are suffering, they are like feeling bad, and you come and you really help and you really do this difference, even if even if in his mind there is like even like a little bit of hatred, he can't not thank you. He can't not feel grateful and thankful for what you did. And on the other side, for sure. So it is the best model and example of how we can reduce hatred and just like make the people accept each other.
That's terrific. And I agree, it's a great model.
Because
You
when we,
mentioned,
like when we think about the needs of the human beings, it's the high level of need, which is the need of your life and your health, and when you're
as Mr. Maslow taught us. One more question from the audience right now, and then I'm going to bring on Brad Yellen, who I'll introduce. But this question is, what would you say to those who live abroad and are contemplating a trip to visit Israel, Jews and non-Jews alike, in terms of safety and the ability to have an impact and an impactful experience? Is this a good time to show solidarity? How would you answer that?
What I think, and let's say what I predict, I believe in the next, like I'm not saying the next year, so like talking about like a year. I believe in 2 months by the beginning of the 2025. This is what I hope, this is what I wish, and this is what I expect and predict. That in 2 to 3 months maximum, and hopefully I hope that like what I am thinking will be it will come real and true, that 2 or 3 months maximum and everything will get normal again, and everyone is welcome to come and visit us.
And I'll put in a shameful plug and a shameless plug that our next Tikvatenu solidarity and volunteer mission is going in February. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask me after the call. I had the privilege of being on the first one with Aaron, who talked about it briefly at the beginning, and they're amazing experiences, and I can't encourage people enough to partake. I'm now going to invite Brad Yellen, who's the Western Regional Director of United Hatzalah here in the United States, to join the conversation. Brad was the first person who told me about Amir and the incredible story about the non-Jewish volunteers who helped make United Hatzalah run so successfully. And Brad, I've gotten two questions from the audience that I'm just going to throw you into the fire and ask, because I think you have a great um, uh, institutional perspective to answer them. The first one is, can you help us understand how Hatzalah interacts with Magen David Adom and military medics and the other ambulance corps in Israel?
Sure. And then I'm going to circle back to some of the earlier comments with Amir, but just
Please
to
do.
answer first things first. Everyone has their main thing. You know, they do other things outside of that, but they have their core mission. So I believe when it comes to MDA, Magen David Adom, their main mission is ambulances, providing ambulance services, and a blood bank, to be the nation's blood bank. Our main mission is to bridge the gap between when an incident happens and when an ambulance is able to show up. That's our main thing. We also have ambulances and we use them for different things. And I thank the Minneapolis Federation for helping with an ambulance and an ambucar in the Rehovot area. So thank you so much. And I appreciate that partnership. But our main thing day to day is that we're a communal response, like Uber, as opposed to leaving dispatch. And it allows us in Jerusalem, we have a 90-second response time, 3 minutes all over the country. It's because we have them individuals spread out throughout the country as volunteers that can respond much like Uber responds to a call for a cab, but we come to save your life. So that is that's how we interact with MDA, and I think on the ground, especially, MDA is very happy that the patient is usually prepped to go into an ambulance. You know, they're already stabilized. They might be on a backboard or something like that, and they, you know, they're ready to go when the ambulance comes. So that transition and getting them to the hospital is that much quicker. I want to talk a little bit about, first of all, Amir mentioned the air volunteer that died during on October 7th. And we had a funeral for him, and there was a whole entourage of emergency vehicles. You know, we gave a lot of honor to the volunteer. We see ourselves as a family. Many of a great number of our volunteers went. And I think at the end, actually, a rabbi even stood up and did a Kaddish for this volunteer, this Arab volunteer, you know, to give proper honor and due respect for him putting himself on the line. I think he died actually helping a Jewish participant. It was at the Nova festival, and you know, he was trying to talk his way, but they didn't have it, and they shot him. And you know, we're whatever. Also, in terms of the response from Arab communities, I saw a video about a year ago that there was an ambucycle that slipped in rain a little bit. They were just getting going and they slipped a little bit. And I saw 3 Arabs in the community jumped up and helped this person get straightened out on their ambucycle so they could go off to the emergency. A United Hatzalah vehicle. They didn't know if it was Jewish, not Jewish, or whatever. But I think that there's really, you know, a lot of support in the Arab community to know that they have emergency responders, you know, most of them being Arab volunteers in their own communities. So that is great. And in terms of, you're talking about, you know, this Arabs and Jews coming together. I think United Hatzalah is very unique in that people have a variety of backgrounds. It's not like people coming together because they believe in coexistence. It's Arabs, volunteers that want to save lives, Jewish volunteers that want to save lives, and they interact with people with very divergent points of view. And yet they interact with the same mission, and they get to know each other, and they break down a lot of barriers as a result of that. People that don't see eye to eye, and they're coming together and unifying, you know, behind a certain mission. So I think that that's a unique coming together that you don't see. If you have a soccer match and you have Jews and Arabs that want coexistence, they have a very similar point of view of a desire for coexistence. Here, it's a desire not necessarily for coexistence. It's a desire to save lives. And with that joint mission, they interact and they break down barriers. So I think that that's unique in the United Hatzalah model.
It is very unique, Brad, and I'm going to take another question from the audience, and it was posed to Amir, and it sort of focuses specifically on what you're talking about. And the question asks, do you feel your work has a broader impact beyond emergency response, and what legacy do you hope it is leaving?
Amir, that's to you.
Amir, that's to you.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question, and I think I saw you speaking, but I couldn't hear.
Okay, I can repeat the question. Do you feel your work has a broader impact beyond emergency response, and what legacy do you hope to leave through it?
Sure. As we were to, like, as I said before all the time, it's very important that before anything, before thinking like who I am as a human being, like we all have, we're not like we were like created and we were born for this as human beings, that you have to do all what you can do to help others. And as I said before, we're not workers. We don't do this for money or whatever. And we're not waiting for anything in return. You are just like, we all have this desire that we all have to help others whenever we need to. And as this is an important thing that I want to talk about here. And it happens to me almost every day. When we have on our screen, when we get that there is an emergency case around us, as volunteers, it's optional. It's not a must that you go. So you look at your screen and you see that there is someone that needs help around you. And as a volunteer, not a worker, you just like, you press and you choose that you are going to, you're responding to or not. And but believe me, and I'm talking about myself personally, and I'm sure that all the volunteers do the same. When you know that someone is 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes away at the same street where you are, and he needs help, and you don't know who's this person, you don't have the name, you don't have his background, you don't know if he's a Jew, if he's a Christian or a Muslim or whatever, but you know that there's someone that needs help, and you choose to. It's optional, it's not a must, and you leave everything and you choose to leave your house, you choose to leave your family, sometimes your work, whatever you are doing, and just like you get there to do, which is very important. That this, we're talking about this culture of giving without waiting for any return. So and as I said there, that this is what we always are choosing to do, and we continue to choose to do because of this. It's a desire within us. So like, as a lifesaver, and we know, like, this is what you feel, and like, you know, like, you don't even count how many times you did that or do that, because it's like unlimited, and like, you do it for free, you do it for nothing to get there in return.
So that's an important legacy to leave, that is, we're all capable of doing that. I think
Yeah.
that's very special. Another question from the audience, it's posed to Brad, so I'm going to ask Brad to answer first, and then if Amir has any anecdotal experience. The questioner writes, I associate United Hatzalah with very religious Jewish volunteers. Are there secular volunteers also?
Yeah, I just looked at some statistics. I think it started as a religious organization in about
2006.
what?
2006.
2006. Okay. And well, Eli Beer started it already another 15 years before that, Jerusalem Hatzalah. But today, I would say it's about 22% ultra-Orthodox and about 25% traditional, maybe modern Orthodox, Mizrahi, that, and about 50% secular of the
exactly 50-50. This number.
Yeah, right around 50% secular. And like Amir said, about 12% are Arabs and Christians, mostly Arab of that population, of that 12%. I think those are the numbers at this time. But we also started quite late. You mean in terms of Arab volunteers, it might be a higher number, but we started along the path, so there was already a big base of Jewish volunteers before Arab volunteers started. One time there was an Arab volunteer that lost his father in his arms. It took a very long time for an ambulance to get there, and he reached out to Eli Beer and said, listen, I'd like to join. And so Eli said, our founder, he said, if you can get a group together, we're about saving lives, not about saving Jewish lives. We're about saving lives. If you can get a group together, we'll put a training course in East Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And that's how we started.
I want to go to another question from the audience because we do have some time left, but our time together is beginning to wane. And this question asks, you do a lot of work with, first of all, I should say that I don't know that everybody is aware. Amir is coming to us live tonight from, where are you?
Sorry?
Where are you coming to us from?
Now I'm in London.
And can you tell us a little bit about some of the work in volunteering and speaking that you do in Europe? Because that will be very apropos to the next question that was asked.
Yeah, so the work that I do is very important, and especially here in the UK. I work with with young students, with teenagers, with these youth groups that like we go to schools, we go to colleges, and now we travel there as Arabs and like Jewish Israelis and Arab Israelis to speak to the students about the coexistence and how we live together and how we can do that together. And especially when it comes to the UK, this is very important because they want to know when we talk about this high level of Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and hatred and violence, that we try our best to show the others. Because, you know, now, especially in Europe and like even in the US and in the UK, you will find that most of the people are taking a side, which is like to be pro-Palestine or to be pro-Israel. And we're trying our best to show the people that the Arabs themselves, the Palestinians and the Israelis as well, Christians, Muslims, and Jews, that we have this experience and these examples of people that we believe in coexisting, that we are living together, that we are working together. And for sure, and as I mentioned before, I always talk about United Hatzalah as this unique model of how we are still succeeding in doing that. So I talk about this successful, and this is the message that we deliver to them, that what you hear, what you watch is not what we are living, and it's not the real image and show that you think about. And we try our best to change that, and it's very important here in the UK to reduce this amount of hatred, this amount of like when it comes to the Muslims here, the Islamophobia, and for sure for the Jewish people that live here in the UK, when we talk about anti-Semitic actions or attacks or whatever.
So when I read the next question from the audience, I think you'll understand why I asked you to give us that little bit of background. And the question is, did the violence in Amsterdam impact how the young people you work with feel about coexistence and working to save each other's lives?
I've been to Amsterdam before, but not as a speaker. So here, like I'm talking about the UK, but it's one of the examples. And I think that there is a football match. I'm not sure if it's today or tomorrow. Like these days, France and Israel, and there were like the same concerns and worries that these like might happen again, which is very important. And this is what we focus on all the time. There is, and especially here in Europe, like people have to understand that there is no space, there is no way for any anti-Semitic actions or attacks. And what we focus on, that people have to be, when we talk about the conflict, when we talk about the problems, when we talk about the troubles, if you want to get involved in that, we want you to be part of the solution and not be part of the problem, which is very important. So we want the people to stand with all of us, to be in the humanity side, as a human side, as we humans in, for example, as an example, in United Hatzalah, how we don't care about your background. We don't care about your thoughts. I'm not only talking about like religion. You might be, for example, an extremist right wing or an extremist left wing, and like a one that has, I don't know what background or what political group that you own to, but when you need help, you don't know who's the person that is coming to help you. Like you will just like open your door and like get this person to help you, which is very important. And it's not only here, and it's abroad as well.
We have a couple more questions, which I'm going to try to get to before you go. This one is directed specifically to Amir. The question is, are you threatened at all by others in Israel, whether they be Jewish or Muslim? Or have you felt threatened?
Oh, have I? What was that?
Yes,
the last
have
part
you?
of the question?
Have you felt threatened at all by others in Israel, whether they be Jewish or Muslim?
Listen, personally, I know hundreds of stories from both sides, for sure. Even like now, the previous question was about in Europe and in Amsterdam, etc., for sure. And especially in the first days after October 7th, I talked about that, and I talked about this level of hatred that was like raised in a way, unbelievable way. And we talked about the hatred. We talked about how like the people after trauma started not accepting each other, and this threat was everywhere in the air. Like we could feel this atmosphere. Me personally, I think that I didn't experience that or face it that much for two main reasons. First of all, I think my role, and this is I need to really to say thanks for United Hatzalah, because like I could feel that we are one family and this didn't affect us. And as I said, this is very unique because it almost approximately, I can talk about like affecting every side and every community and every organization, every company in Israel, but this didn't happen there because we know our values. So that was like the first reason. And the second reason like is a personal reason. As a tour guide, like, you know, I speak different languages. My Hebrew is very good. Like I speak Hebrew fluently. Like I speak Hebrew very, very good, like a first language. So my language, my Hebrew, and at the same time with United Hatzalah, I think this is why I almost didn't experience that. But in general, there are many people that they did in both sides, which is as I said in the beginning, I don't want to say it's understandable or like to talk about it like in a way that we like to justify it, because there is no way to justify it from any side. But you know, that was like a big thing that happened on October 7th, and the people were traumatic from both sides, and that's why that was like a big threat in the air in general.
We have time for two more questions. I'm sorry that we won't be able to get to all of them, but I'll ask them as quickly as I can. And Amir and Brad, if you can respond quickly as well. The first is, has religious practice ever interfered with service delivery? And the questioner goes on to say, are Muslim volunteers given training in the sensitivities around Jewish practice and vice versa? I think it's a real good question. Amir,
Okay,
if you want to take that, then Brad, if you have any, follow-up.
okay, so when it comes to religion, I think that you can find that there are many photos of Muslim volunteers with Jewish volunteers that they are praying at the same time. You can like find like that. Like I work at the Disperse Center, and I'm not the only Arab Muslim volunteer that work at the Disperse Center. And the time of prayer, I do my prayer. I practice like my religion. I do my prayer at the Disperse Center. There's like a room which is that maybe most of you like here, maybe not all the others that and I hope that they will come one day and visit us at the Disperse Center. You will get to the auditorium of us, and like it's really my prayer room. So this is where I pray. This is where Ramzi pray. This is where Zaid pray. I'm telling you the names of the Arab Muslim volunteers that we have. And when it comes to religion as well, I mentioned on the other side, for the Jewish side, I mentioned on Saturday, Shabbat. So when I work at the Disperse Center, you know, like like the things that you're not allowed to do on Saturday, you need someone that who's non-Jew to do. So if we, as the Arab volunteers, the Muslim volunteers, are not part of United Hatzalah, and we're not at the Disperse Center, and we're not even on Saturday in a Jewish neighborhood, that a volunteer will need someone who's non-Jew to do. So we do this mixed ambulance shifts, that there will be a Jewish volunteer and there will be a non-Jewish volunteer together, because when you can't do such a thing, there will be who can or who is allowed to do it, who's the non-Jew. And which is one of the best examples that we can talk about that is Yom Kippur, which is, you know, like it's the day that the Jewish people, for sure, it's the holidays there in Judaism, and like on Yom Kippur, like even you can, you know, like Saturday, and even more, you can drive the car, you can do anything. The people will be praying all the time. So who can cover? Like let's take Jerusalem as an example. So it's almost like this. It's almost all the Muslim and the Arab volunteers in East Jerusalem, they have on that day to cover East and West Jerusalem. So last year on Yom Kippur, we had 12 ambulances. So we are talking about 50, which is half of the Muslim volunteers that they were providing this service for everyone in Jerusalem, for the Jewish people and for the Arab people, and the other half. And that's why, like, it's not that only the half and the other half were not involved. The other half were the people who have the ambucycles, or people that they have the mini cars that we. So almost everyone was there on that day for 24 hours when there is no. So this is like how the others, the Jewish volunteers, could practice their religion, could pray on that in this important and holy day. And who did the job on that way? The Muslim volunteers.
I'll just add in terms of service. First of all, in training, there's part of the training is in and around understanding culture and halacha, Jewish law. In terms of saving lives, I mean, basically the rules are thrown out to save a life. You know, that you can break almost every rule in order to save a life. So it doesn't interfere in that way. And as Amir said, it's really helpful to have air volunteers for in the more religious communities. I was actually just in Israel, Yom Kippur, and I saw an ambulance that I'm aware of, generally stationed in East Jerusalem, going through a very religious neighborhood in Jerusalem, just on the other side of the border. So
yes, you're right. You can break any rule, as you said, which is right 100%. But you don't need to if there is someone who's not Jew, which is very important.
That's very true.
Right,
so,
right. So a lot's avoided because we have our friends with us.
So when there is no choice, you can do it, and it's the same as especially at the dispatch center, because I work there. So on Saturday, we have to be there. Like, you know, like it's a must that at least there have to be one volunteer, which is usually we are 5 or 6, but at least there has to be one volunteer on that. So, but for sure, if something happened and like none of the Jewish volunteers can be there, it's like the way, okay, you have no choice, so you can break it.
If I can just also,
Brad, I want to give Amir, he has to leave in 2 minutes, so I do want to give him the last word if you don't mind, and I want to ask a question from the audience, and then we have to let him go. He's speaking to another group at 1 o'clock Central. To wrap it up, Amir, this questioner asks, what gives you hope?
What?
What gives you hope?
What gives me hope? Listen, I think that I mentioned that before. It's really tough time, and it's complex, and we see that when we talk about being like, to talk about hope is what we believe in. As I said, even if we see that more and more escalations are coming, and more the situation is getting complicated, but we know ourselves, we know what we're doing, and we believe in that, and we will never this will never affect us, which is very important. And what gives me hope that we, as I talked about United Hatzalah as a model, this can be really like a role model for others to learn from us when more and more people know about us and what we do. And as I said, we enter, it's not that you just like someone is coming and learn about us and say, okay, this is fine or this is not fine. You like almost everyone need us. Everyone need these volunteers when there is a need for help. So we are entering the houses very easy. Like I'm talking about like literally entering the houses, not only like entering by our thoughts. We are there and we are helping. So this experience and this let's say this important thing that we leave after helping, after treating, is something that is really more effective and more important than words. Like now we're talking, but while we are talking, now we talked for an hour, so I'm pretty sure there were hundreds of people that they needed help, and our volunteers like help them. And this is the hope that I'm talking about. That it's not only, and I'm sorry to say that, because like, you know, as a speaker, I speak a lot. It's not only blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, we're talking and talking and talking. We're not talking, we're doing. We have like a job to do. We're working on that. We're just like, I'm talking about our work. And while I'm talking about our work, we are working. it's not me. There are other thousands that are working and they are responding for the people that they need help. And this is the hope that I believe in.
Well, I can't thank you enough for joining us today, Amir. I think you inspired every person that's on this Zoom webinar today. You're walking the walk and talking the talk simultaneously, and for that we are eternally grateful. We're going to let you go so that another community can benefit from hearing your story. Again, thank you very much, truly. Brad, I didn't mean to cut you up before. If you want to share your thoughts before I wrap this up. Amir, toda
Thank you.
rabah, al shokr.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I just wanted to say in terms of the Jewish law, I think it's interesting. Sometimes people say, wow, you Jews and Arabs work together, and they're taken back that they're working so close together. And I point out that even Jews and Jews are working together. That we have religious and secular Jews, and they find ways to not get along sometimes. And one of the great things about United Hatzalah is the unifying force. United is a very important part of our name, between Jews and Jews, as well as the Jews and the Arabs. And sometimes when you see religious Jews with payas and in full dress, and even on a Shabbat, showing up to someone that just drowned or almost drowned, thank God, showing up right on the beach. It's like, how are you helping? Aren't you religious? How do you show up? And yet, laws are broken to save a life. And when they see religious Jews come in such a scenario, or secular Jews coming into their homes to start CPR and saving a religious Jew's life, it brings people together in a very unique way. If you want to see more videos, what was the unashamed pitch or whatever? Just
Shameful and shameless.
IsraelRescue.org. It's not under United Hatzalah. Our website is IsraelRescue.org. If you want to check out videos or more, you're welcome to take a look over there.
Thank you, Brad. And thank you for helping to organize today and for bringing this positive story on so many levels to our community. I firmly believe that not enough people in the United States know about these stories. It provides encouragement, inspiration, hope, as the last question asked, that there is some good in the world and there will be a tomorrow, and we're working towards it. To wrap things up, I think that's a really wonderful segue for me to say thank you to everybody who participated today in this webinar. We at Minneapolis Jewish Federation are working tirelessly to help our partners overseas get through the day and maintain their communities to build a better tomorrow. Our Israel Emergency Campaign raised $12.7 million to help do just that. United Hatzalah was one of dozens of organizations that have received funds through that. The federation system as a whole has raised in excess of $800 million. And I cannot tell you how vital those funds have been to help people rebuild their lives and be prepared for the better tomorrow that I know we all want. If you ever want more information, not only about the Israel Emergency Campaign and what it was able to do, but all of our Israel and overseas activities, I invite you to contact me. I invite you to contact Elad Harel or Noah Rosenzweig, and we would be very, very happy to talk to you about it, get you involved, sit on a committee, and help us make a difference, because we are trying our best to do that every single day. With that, I thank you all. We're ending on my phone exactly 1 minute early. I don't believe in Jewish time. So thanks for spending your lunch hour with us, and we hope to see you at the next session in January. Take care.